Hi, I'm Kimberly Corp.
And I'm Catherine Corp.
And welcome to another episode of
Let's Get WeLLthy.
Today we're very excited to bring you an interview we did with a former employee of ours.
Yes.
And she's also a new mom, but she's been a nutritionist at Memorial Sloan Kettering for years. And we had a great interview.
We did. We had a wonderful, wonderful interview. Her name is Suzanne Gerdes-Fulds.
Yes.
And we hope you really enjoy it.
Hello, we're here today with our friend and former employee, Suzanne Gerdes-Fulds. She worked for us at our Pilates studio, and now she's a wonderful nutritionist. So, Suzanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a registered dietitian, and I started working at Memorial Sloan Kettering about 5 years ago.
Wow.
And I started off with the geriatric population and oncology, and now I work with employees.
Oh, that's wonderful. So the reason we wanted you to come is we get our clients here, as you know, since you were here, asking us for nutrition advice, and we're not nutritionists.
Right, and they oftentimes, well, what do you do? And what we do may not necessarily be what something
Right.
else. I mean, aside from, the basics that everyone knows that we should do.
So to narrow it down, because nutrition is like the hugest topic, and we'd be here the rest of our lives together
Yeah.
talking about it, most of our clients, when they come in, it's usually something digestive tract related.
Yeah.
And then you see a lot of commercials for things about your gut and gut health. So first of all, how would you describe the gut?
Well, it's a long tube. It starts from your mouth and goes all the way through your tush. And its an important job is to break down what we eat and to absorb what we eat and then get rid of it.
Okay.
So your digestion actually starts from your mouth with chewing. You release enzymes to break down foods like bread and rice. And then as it travels through, it gets mushed around, mixed with more enzymes to break it down, absorbed, and then you get rid of it.
Okay. That was very well,
I know, it's
well
very
defined.
So the people who inhale their food and just swallow it whole are really missing a big step of digestion.
Big step.
Okay.
Big step.
Big step of digestion. Okay, so one thing that we've noticed, and again, we get asked for advice that we're not authorized or trained to give, is people will say, well, should I take probiotics? And of course, the commercials would have you believe that everybody should be taking them, but what's the deal? I mean, we all know what antibiotics are, right? If
Right.
you've ever had an infection in your life, you know an antibiotic. Then all of a sudden, probiotics came along, and then there are
Yeah.
prebiotics. So help us.
Yes.
So I'll take it a step back to give you some context. So in our environment, there's trillions and trillions of microorganisms.
Okay.
Even on our skin, there's a huge community of microorganisms. Well, the same thing is true for the insides of our body.
Okay.
It's not sterile, right? So there's trillions of microorganisms in our digestive system, and especially in our intestines.
Okay.
And what they do is they also help us break down and absorb nutrients that we may not be able to do on our own. So, for instance, fibers and things like that, they will help us break it down and absorb it. So when you're talking about like a healthy gut, you're talking about that diverse community of microorganisms.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I think what is interesting is a lot of, well, let's just pick women because it's easier. We all know that we each need a different skincare routine.
Yes.
But I don't think people think about their digestive health as that maybe if some person eats something and they have good results, that might not be the best solution for another.
Right, right. And each person's healthy gut bacteria is different. It's like a fingerprint almost.
Oh, interesting. That makes sense, though. Yeah.
Now, I told you in an email about the study that I read that they used 479, I haven't figured that one out, identical twins, because you would think you need an even number. But anyway.
Maybe it was a set of triplets? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Maybe.
They couldn't find the other
They couldn't
twin.
find the other twin. And the study showed that even with identical twins, of course we were fascinated, that the gut bacteria can be different.
Yeah.
It is I mean, there are probably gazillion reasons, but what are some of the reasons that could
So
be?
one big reason is how you were born.
Oh.
That is one of the first influences on your gut bacteria. Did you know there's thousands of studies coming out now, well maybe not thousands, but several studies coming out now looking at the difference between children that are born vaginally versus children that are born via C-section. And they will have a different gut bacteria because they're not exposed to their mother's microbiome. Then whether you're breastfed or whether you have formula, that can also influence your gut bacteria. And then as you go on and on through life, what you're eating, different environmental factors, stress, sleep, taking antibiotics or having various illnesses throughout life will change your microbiome.
That makes sense, but I never really thought about it that way.
We knew about it a little bit from living in Japan.
Right.
For 4 years. So we lived in Japan for 4 years, and we had never had a cavity. And then afterwards, it was like what crawled into our mouth and started ruining.
Right.
And our dentist is the one that first turned us on to this idea that the enzymes or the microbiomes in your can play a different role, because he says, well, no, all of your bacteria changed because you lived there for so long.
Right.
So
And then it
very
changed
cool.
back when we moved back.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And the same thing is true when you're sick or you know you have a stressful time in your life. It'll change in the immediate term, but over time you'll regain your gut bacteria, hopefully to the same amount of diversity, but not always.
Okay.
Okay.
So then what are probiotics meant to do, like by design?
Yeah, so probiotics are basically the live microorganisms that you ingest.
Okay.
You can take them in two ways. One, naturally from food, and two, a dietary supplement. So through food, you can get it from fermented foods. So
Okay.
yogurt is a fermented food, kefir, fermented milk,
Oh, right.
kombucha, fermented tea, sauerkraut, the kind that's in the fresh section, not the
Hear that, fresh
pantry section.
Yeah.
Also from kimchi,
Okay.
miso, tempeh, which is fermented soy. Those are all ways to get it naturally from your food.
Okay.
And a lot of studies show that it's more beneficial to get it from your food
I was just going to
than from a dietary supplement. Yeah.
That
And
makes
from a
sense.
dietary supplement, you can find so many on the shelves now, and it can be risky taking it.
Right, because I'm sure also, more is not necessarily better, I would guess.
Exactly.
Just because one might be good for you, it doesn't mean that 10 would be.
Right.
So we had an experience, and you can chime in, where, and I'm not here to bash any product, but
Yes.
we tried a product that, it wasn't a supplement, it was a food that just had added probiotics, and it did not work too well with our, let's just put it the delicate way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember we were on the phone, we were like, this is not good. We were like,
Yeah. Yeah, I was very, yeah.
and so you mentioned prebiotics as well.
Yes.
And so I actually don't know what prebiotics are.
Right.
Yeah, so prebiotics are the food that feeds the gut bacteria, basically.
Okay.
So they come from lots of different foods, but mostly foods that are rich in dietary fiber.
Okay.
We don't digest dietary fiber,
Right.
so it's the microorganisms in our gut that do digest it. So the most richest forms are going to come from Jerusalem artichoke, which is not the same as regular
I know, I
artichoke.
actually like them. We like to slice them thin and we dehydrate them, so then they're like chips.
Exactly.
Huh.
So that's a very, very good source
Okay.
of prebiotics. But you'll also find them in beans, you'll find it in asparagus, you'll find it in a lot of the allium family, which
Okay.
is garlic, onions, leeks.
Gosh, my husband eats so much those garlic and onions. He is fine on the prebiotic front.
There you go.
He's good.
Yeah. So a lot of these sources of fiber is the type inulin. So if you look on a lot of protein bars, you'll find like chicory root fiber or inulin.
Okay.
And that's a source of prebiotic fiber.
Okay.
But if you take too much of it or you start taking it without getting used to it, you will end up with a lot of bloating, a lot of discomfort, maybe some gas. So again,
Okay.
better to get it from the food and to have a well-balanced diet than just go hard on
Right,
prebiotics.
Because if your system's not accustomed to something, you can't just, start immediately. It's just like,
Exactly.
Rome was not built in a day.
Take your time.
Take
Yes.
your time. So
Okay.
I don't want this to turn into the tangent it could totally become, and it's my fault for asking, but what is your opinion on like protein bars and these bars that have this supplement and that supplement? Because we have clients, again, coming in saying, oh, I was running late, I skipped lunch, but I had a protein bar, and that always makes my hair catch on fire, because I'm like,
Yeah.
what is your opinion?
Yeah, so that's a valid point, when you don't have time, but
Right.
you need the energy, especially before like a workout
Right.
or if your dinner's going to be hours and hours away, you probably do need a little something in between to get you through. But the problem with some of the protein bars out there is their ingredient list is extensive.
And you can't pronounce.
Yeah, what is even in there?
Right.
Can't pronounce half of it.
So I'm always like, because sometimes, again, my husband will be like, should we get this? I'll look at it, I'm like, I can't pronounce like
Yeah.
half the ingredients, so no.
Yeah.
Like if you can't pronounce it, don't put it in.
So my take on them is find ones that have nice clean ingredients.
Right.
A couple that I like are things like RX Bar, where it's like 5 or 6 ingredients.
Yes.
Okay.
Even with Kind Bars, as long as it's not the one that has lots of protein in it,
Right.
it's simple ingredients.
Right. And
That makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. So
Very
that's
cool.
good. So now at least we know what to, that's not really recommending nutrition.
Right, and-
That's just saying stay away from ingredients that are 5,000 miles long.
right, because then also that
Exactly.
way it would seem to me that the more ingredients that you have that you can't pronounce, the more processed it would be.
Right, exactly. And then, the other thing that you could do is just grab a piece of fruit and some nuts, and that'll give you plenty of
That's
energy.
such a novel idea. I can't imagine.
Yeah, fruit and nuts, nature's fast food.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like bananas, because bananas are great. They're because they're cheap. I mean, even in New York
Right.
City, a banana is cheap.
Exactly.
Not relative probably
and
to
if you
somewhere else,
walk
but
the streets around there, how many fruit guys are there?
yeah.
It's on your way here.
It's so true. Okay, so now, speaking of fruit, I did have someone once say to me, well, I didn't eat the fruit because it wasn't organic, so I chose an X. I'm like, whoa, it seemed to me that the fruit choice, even if it's conventional,
Yeah.
would have been better, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
whole foods is always the way to go. So whole fruit, whole vegetables, whatever it is, that's always the way to go. And if you have a choice of organic this or conventional that, as long as it's a whole food, it probably isn't going to make much of a difference on your health. It's really more of an environmental choice when
Okay.
it comes to organic. And when you are choosing organic, think of the dirty dozen. So this is a list put out by the Environmental Working Group, and each year they change it because it's based on what pests are out there.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So for most cases, it's thin-skinned fruits and vegetables.
Uh-huh.
So leafy greens are always on that
Right.
list. And then berries, always on that list. But also things like apples and peppers, and you might find some potatoes on there. So things that are exposed, more easily.
Gotcha.
If it's a thick-skinned fruit, like a banana, go conventional. It
Okay.
really doesn't matter.
That is so good to know. So the other thing we were talking about in preparing to interview you is how back in like high school and college, we were all about, because we were dancers and all we cared about was calories.
Yeah.
And so we had this misconception we know now that, let's just pick 100. 100 calories, it's all going to be the same.
Right.
Because it's calories in, calories out. That was our way to go.
Right.
Calories in, calories out. So,
Quality is important too.
yeah.
Quality is very important. So that brings me back to the whole foods, because those are going to provide you with lots of nutrients, not just your macronutrients, the carbs, the protein, the fat that are really the building blocks of your diet, but also micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals, things like vitamin C, things like iron or calcium, but then also other chemicals that are in there, like we talk about fibers, we talk about prebiotics, and then also antioxidants. So there's so many other benefits to a whole food, whereas you get to processed foods, and a lot of them are wiped clean of that stuff.
Okay. So what are antioxidants? Like, if you had to just define it, because I don't think I could define. I
Yeah.
kind of know what they are.
You'd
but if you asked me to
hit the mark
define it-
closely, but you wouldn't hit the bullseye.
Yeah.
Neither would I, by the way.
So they're chemicals in our food that help to quench or get rid of free radicals.
Okay.
So free radicals are these atoms basically bouncing around looking for a friend.
Okay.
And so as they bounce around, they can cause damage to our DNA. So what an antioxidant does is they go, you can be my friend, and then they're paired up and they no longer bounce around causing damage.
Oh wow. Okay.
I can tell you're used to explaining all this stuff. So it's very good. No, it's so
very
clear. Yeah.
it's very clear. Because there's nothing worse when someone explains something to you and you're no better off. You're like, right, that Swahili was lovely.
Yeah, no, but because Einstein actually has a quote. He said that you never really understand something until you can explain it to your grandmother.
Ah, yes.
So I'm like, I'm very happy.
So we also know that there are certain foods that are said, oh, this improves concentration, or this improves this, or this will help you sleep, or this will put you to sleep. And so just in preparing, I was looking it up, and there's that whole gut-brain axis, which also we know to be true because you can see something scary and your stomach drops. So we
Right.
all know there's some connection, but there's actually a true connection.
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of it comes to your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis.
Okay.
So basically they're just different parts of your body
Right.
that talk to each other.
Okay.
And that's what the gut-brain axis is the gut communicating with your brain.
Okay.
it does this in many different ways. One is through nerves. One could be through hormones or different enzymes. So there's a lot of different ways that they communicate. But you'll notice that when you're stressed out, the way you eat changes.
Right.
And it's because hormones change. Sometimes immune functions change. Nerves change. Your vagus nerve, which is a central nerve, will then communicate to the brain that you're hungry or you need comfort foods.
You must have chocolate.
Exactly. And this has been shown in studies too, that when we're stressed out, our hunger hormones, one of them is called ghrelin, another is called leptin, those levels will change, as well as the reward pathways in our brain. So we won't be satisfied with the same amount. So you're like, I need more, chocolate,
Wow,
chocolate, chocolate.
reward pathways.
Yes.
Yes.
Very
That's
interesting.
interesting, though. But it does make sense because, like, it doesn't happen to me often. But once in a while, if I'm very stressed, I'll just feel it in my tummy, and it doesn't happen. Oh, when it does, I'm like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah. And it depends on, the type of stress too. Some types of stress we see as a threat, and oftentimes when we see it as a threat, we might lose our hunger. And if we see it as a challenge, we might feel more hungry. So it really depends on what type of stress it is,
Okay.
and if you've faced it before, and if you've already developed coping methods.
Okay. So basically not all stress is created equal.
Exactly.
Because we were once told that the body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress. And I was like, well, I feel like, I think you just summed it up well. If it's stress that makes you kind of go, okay, I can do it. And you
Yeah.
kind of feel like,
Ready to take on the world.
yeah,
Yeah.
that could be better than just sitting there like, woe is me.
You had wanted to go
Yeah,
fetal or
exactly.
something.
And if you think about it, way back when, it was the fight or flight response,
Right.
right? So now, if we are just bearing all this stress and there's nothing we can do, we can't go fight a tiger.
Right.
We can't go run away from our bosses. We
Right.
have to sit there and smile and be okay. So you're stewing with all these hormones going
Right.
crazy inside of you. So it's understandable that as a result, you're like, let me just eat this bag of chips.
Yeah, exactly. I feel better already just thinking about it.
Yeah, because it's so funny because processed foods, I mean, we know now, and I try very, very hard not to have any, but the more you read about it, I'm surprised I made it to this age. Our guilty
Yeah.
pleasure in college, and we were studying like gangbusters, was little boxes of sugar cereal. Yeah. That was our little favorite go-to snack. Nothing wrong with cereal, but I'm not sure the sugar cereal packaged in all different bright colors
Yeah.
that don't ever occur in nature are part of the solution. But one thing I was reading is that there's this thing called leaky gut, and that it can be caused by processed foods.
Yeah,
what's-
so it can happen in very specific populations. So people who might have a depressed immune system, or people who already have GI issues going on, like for instance, if they've had, a stomach virus that causes a loss of their microbiome, that can affect the gut and cause the spaces in between the cells to kind of open. So
Okay.
instead of being tightly closed together, there's little spaces. And so when we are breaking down our food, instead of them just being absorbed into our bloodstream, they can actually go into those interstitial areas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that can then affect our immune system.
Okay, so that's why it's called leaky gut, is because there's
Exactly.
spaces in between the cells.
That makes sense.
That makes sense, because otherwise it just sounds like, your car is dripping onto the
Right.
driveway.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the relationship between the gut and these processed foods is processed foods for most cases are not high in fiber. And like I said before, they pretty much wipe clean of vitamins and minerals, unless of course they've been fortified with vitamins and minerals.
Right.
Right.
But the fiber is really key for gut health. So if you're eating a diet that's full of processed foods, and I should identify ultra processed foods too, because some processed foods are fine, like a can of black beans. That's minimally processed.
Right.
But I'm
I
talking
got it.
about the processed foods that have extensive ingredient lists, and they don't look like what they were in
Right,
nature.
right.
You're not sure how we got to that
a
stage.
box of macaroni and cheese with that powdered stuff.
Yeah. Is it even cheese?
Right.
We don't
That's
know.
why I said the powdered stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah, so it's those foods that, are very devoid of fiber. And when we don't have the fiber, the microbiome dies off because they don't have food to keep going.
see, that's really interesting. So many people are just obsessed with how much protein they get.
Yes.
Everyone's like, I need more protein, I need more protein. And I'm always like, yeah, you need some fiber too.
Yeah.
You know, just a little bit. But it's just, I don't know when it happened where this obsession with getting enough protein became the norm and not thinking about, you know, and I think most people get too much protein. I think they get much more than they need, whereas
Right.
most people, I don't think, even get half the amount of fiber that they
Right.
need.
So the amount that we need for fiber is about 25 to 35 grams per day. Guess how much the standard American gets?
I'm going to go with 10.
Yes.
Oh, wow, I got it right. Yes.
Isn't that nuts?
It's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so-
But these high protein diets are so popular now that I think they're forsaking the fiber and other nutrients, obviously, that in order to get. And it's so funny, we've been trying to tell our mother not to do certain things just because, you know, knowing what she's gone through, this and that, we're like, maybe you should.
And she always says, because we were like, what'd you have to eat? So we tell her we eat a lot of salads, we like vegetables, we like
Yeah.
fruits. We actually do get about 25 to 35 grams of fiber. My mother would say, well, make sure you're getting enough protein. And I'm like,
And then the other thing is, obviously, diabetes aside, so I'm not talking about a diabetic, I'm talking
Yeah.
about a normal person. Fruit has natural sugar in it, but that's much better sugar than your candy bar. Right?
Absolutely.
I just wanted someone to say that, not me. Go
Yes.
ahead.
The naturally occurring sugars in both fruit and dairy are absolutely fine. Fruit also has fiber, so
Right.
the fiber will help to balance out the sugars. And for dairy, you've got protein and you've got fats in it, so that will help to balance out the sugars as well.
makes sense.
Okay, that's good, because I think the trends have shifted so much, especially since we were in high school, college, and you're to the point when you get to a certain age, and then, the internet can be terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because you're like, you Google this, and I find that most people will go to a website and they glean what they want to glean
Right.
from the website.
Or they find the website that agrees with how they want to live.
they go to page 20 of their search. They're like, well, finally someone agreed with me. Eat sugar. No. So when people have because most people, when they have nutrition questions, or we get it all the time, exercise or body questions, most people go to the internet, which is a wonderful tool to have. It's a wonderful resource. I mean, we used to use encyclopedias way back when, and now we've got the internet. What advice would you give to someone when they're trying to Google and pick the right information for them? Is there any suggestion you have of how they can do it?
Yeah, I would first look at what the web browser is. If it's a .com, probably not the best source.
Oh, that's good advice.
But if it's a .gov or a .edu, more likely you're going to find good information and
Okay.
information that's backed by science.
Good to know. That's a really simple.
Yeah, we say that a lot, because we put up on our videos websites, and we usually pick the government-based websites because they're also updating their information every
Right.
however many years. So it's not like
Exactly.
you're getting the study that was done in 1950, because that'd be a little scary.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's good to know, because I mean, we've all done it. We've all Googled.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do it myself, and I have to watch myself like, oh, don't worry, you don't have the plague.
Yes.
You're right.
But I think it would be a good idea if we all Google what fun recipes with Jerusalem artichokes.
Yeah,
That
maybe
would
we'll
be
find
fun.
one and put one up, because
Yeah.
there are so many cool little vegetables out there that
There
just
are.
don't get their moment in the sun. So
They
I think
don't.
that aren't they also called sunchokes?
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
remember?
they
Because,
are.
right, all of a sudden you
Yeah.
said their moment in the sun. I'm like, wait, they're
Yeah.
called sunchokes.
All right.
Yeah, those are very good. So I think we've covered a lot of nice.
It's been so, yes,
Yeah.
informative. I can't talk. Yeah. Maybe I need brain food. No.
Gotta
it
get your
we were
salmon.
told- That's what I was just going to ask. You said, but my mother used to say it was tuna fish, but it's salmon.
Well, tuna works too.
Okay.
So any fatty fish is rich in omega-3 fatty
Okay.
acids. So tuna, salmon, mackerel, sardines,
Okay.
halibut, all of these are good sources.
Okay.
The only thing you have to be careful about tuna is that it does have methyl mercury.
Yeah.
So limit it to 2 servings a week.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But we love salmon.
Yeah,
So we'll go back.
we'll do the salmon. All right.
And then when it comes to, because our mother asked us this question, and now we have an answer.
Yay.
She asked us about canned salmon, and I said, I always say, just be careful of the sodium with anything canned.
Right.
But in your experience, is it, like with frozen salmon, it's usually flash frozen, so
Right.
it's pretty close to fresh?
Yeah.
What is the canned salmon?
Canned is also great.
Good to
So
know.
you do have to watch out for the sodium. And another thing I would look out for is to see if the can is BPA free.
Ah.
Because BPA is a chemical that has been linked to some cancers, and they're looking at if it's related to other things in our health now. So look for a can that's BPA free, and you can avoid all of that.
Okay,
Excellent.
so one last question. Since you mentioned the chemical, it made me remember a question I had previously. Some people are concerned about like pesticides with their fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
And how much of a concern is that? I mean, you know how people can go off the deep end, and so you never really know, how much it should be. So
Yeah, there's very limited research that shows that it affects our health.
Okay.
But in terms of the environment, it has a huge impact.
Okay.
So I do recommend choosing the Dirty Dozen list, and then choosing local when you can, because
Okay.
typically they use less pesticides and have a smaller carbon footprint than foods that are coming from like Chile or Argentina or China.
Got
So
it.
it's good to choose local, choose sustainable, and then choose organic as well.
Sounds like a
Okay.
plan.
Wonderful. I can't think of anything
I can't.
else.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
It's my
It's been great.
pleasure.
It was fun.
Yes.
So we hope you enjoyed the interview as much as we enjoyed giving the interview. I learned a lot. It's like it's one of
Yes.
those things that you think you know a lot about, and then you start to hear it from an expert, and you're like, this is really good to know. So she'll be back. We'll talk about processed foods. We'll talk about whatever you want to hear about.
We'll
So
talk
leave a
about types of diets, like types of diets that are popular and what the pros and cons of those diets are. Should you follow the fad or should you not follow the fad?
Yes. So if you are interested in a specific topic, leave a comment below. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this, you can subscribe below to our channel. And don't forget to check out our other videos. And if you have a request for a specific topic, leave it in the comments below and we will do it. Thank you.